that you're doing well. My name is Sara and welcome to the second episode of my knitting video podcast. It's been, I think, about 5 weeks since I filmed the first episode, and that includes the 2 weeks of winter holidays I had. So there's been a lot of progress on a lot of knitting projects, which means there's a lot to share today. So I don't think this will be a particularly brief one. I think overall I have 6 finished objects and then 3 works in progress that are currently on my needles, and then I also have a couple of yarn acquisitions which I wasn't planning on getting, but I had a discount code. But I didn't get a lot of yarn, just for a couple of projects, and that will be the rest of my winter projects, I think. So before we start, there is one thing that I want to mention. I recently realized that I've accidentally been twisting all of my knit stitches. It's got to do with the way that I pick up the yarn when I knit. So instead of scooping it down, I've been picking it like upwards and then dragging it through. And I knit continental, but originally I was taught English, and then when I came back to knitting this past October, I just learned how to crochet, and so I was already tensioning my yarn with my left hand, so it made more sense for me to kind of relearn how to knit continental, because I never really clicked with English knitting anyways. I always found it very confusing for some reason. But I don't know what sort of video I watched to learn how to knit, because clearly I've been doing it wrong. And I wanted to mention it in case anyone can tell. Like, I don't think it's particularly obvious in the pieces that I made, in the sense that I don't think anything looks bad because of it. But I think if I show close-ups of things, people might notice. And so I did just want to kind of put that out there. I also think it's kind of a testament to the fact that, well, I think I'm a very confident beginner, and I do like to try complicated things and have a bit of a challenge. Also, I have no particular interest in just making plain stockinette jumpers, because I already have plain stockinette jumpers. I want to do something more fun with my knitting, at least for the time being. It's also still very much of a testament to the fact that I'm still a beginner, and I will make like silly mistakes. So, you know, I thought I would just kind of put that out there. But with that being said, I guess we can start by talking about what I'm wearing today, which is one of the 2 big finished objects I have to show this week. I have 2 jumpers and then a couple of accessories, but most of the rest of everything is socks. I've been knitting so many socks. But I did finally finish my Celeste sweater. This is a pattern by Petit Knit, and it was a work in progress in the previous episode, though I don't think I'd made very much progress by then. I think I was probably about here with the yoke. So I'd kind of just started doing the colour work. This took about a month to finish, but I wasn't really working on it, I think, for a couple of weeks of that. I think it maybe took 2.5 weeks of like actively working on it alongside other bits. I had a week before Christmas where I was just working on a pair of socks for my mum, which I will talk about later, and not considering any other project. So this was put on the back burner for a bit while I worked on other bits, but I think it can be quite a quick knit. As far as colour work patterns go, it's not a very complicated one. It was my first colour work project, and I would very much recommend it. I thought the pattern was very clear. It was my first time following a Petit Knit pattern, and I know that everyone raves about her, but again, it was my first time following one of her patterns, and I thought just with the colour work, the increases, everything was made very clear. I liked that she wrote how many stitches you're meant to have on your needles after each round of increases, and there wasn't really any point in the pattern where I was confused as to what I was meant to be doing. So nothing to say about that. I didn't find any mistakes or anything. So I guess I will talk a little bit about the yarn as well. So the pattern is written to be knit in the Sandnes Garn Peer Gynt, which is what I used. I do have a little bit left to show you, though I am missing one colour. Oh, fell to the floor. So that is what I used, save from one colour. So for this I used the Ístex Léttlopi. I think this is colour 1420. I will write it on screen if it's not correct, but I believe it is. Just because I couldn't find the brown that I wanted in the Sandnes Garn Peer Gynt anywhere. I do believe that it's come back into stock in the shops that I looked at, but I couldn't find it anywhere at the time that I was ordering the yarn, and so I thought I would just get something similar. This is also 100% wool, same as the Peer Gynt. The Peer Gynt isn't a very soft yarn, but I will say, even with a high neck, I don't really find it scratchy at all. It's quite comfortable, but I am not particularly sensitive to wool. I think that if you are, it probably isn't the yarn for you. It's not a very soft wool at all. It's a pretty classic, I think, non-superwash DK. And this is definitely more rustic. I don't know that I would make a high neck jumper in the Léttlopi. This definitely felt more, I don't want to say that it felt scratchy as I was knitting with it, but it felt scratchier than the Peer Gynt, if that makes any sense. And it's also a lot less even a lot less evenly spun than the Peer Gynt. The Peer Gynt is very even. I didn't find any inconsistencies, any knots, anything within the balls. This, it's not particularly uneven, but it's not 100% the same throughout. And the color is also a bit variegated, which I did actually really like. So in a couple of spots, I think there's a couple of flecks of like that are more yellow or more red in a couple of areas, and I thought that was nice. And then for the Peer Gynt, I used the other full colors. I will just put the names and the numbers on screen, but I believe this is color 1002, which is like an off-white. It's a slightly cream white. I don't know if it comes across on camera. It looks quite bright white to me on the screen, but it's definitely a warm toned brown. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's like a really yellow cream, but it's definitely not grey or like cool toned. And I used this as my main colour for the collar and the body, but I didn't use it for the main colour in the colourwork chart, and I will get to that in a second. And then I had like a light grey, I think this is Beige grey melange, something like that, which I think is a pretty good description of the colour. It's definitely a warm toned light grey. I really like this. A dark grey, I think this is Charcoal Melange. I would 100% knit a jumper in this. I love the colour. It's not too variegated of a grey, but I think it's a really nice dark grey. And then I think this is called Spice Apple. This is a really beautiful red. It's definitely warm tone, but it's not orange. Like, it doesn't feel super orange, but I also think that it goes quite well with my hair, which is not very bright at the moment. I do need to redo my henna tonight or tomorrow, but I do think that it looks quite good with it. And I like the way that it pairs together with the rest of the colours. So I'm very, very happy with my colour choices. I am super happy with like how they ended up looking together, because I ended up ordering them online because there are no, like, I don't have a local yarn store that stocks Peer Gynt, and so I was just trusting that the pictures on the website looked accurate, and I think they did. So happy with my colour choices. As I was saying, I did kind of change the colours around a bit with the colour work, and I didn't do that intentionally at all, but the pattern comes with both so for each size you have your own like colour work chart, and for each size it comes with the coloured in chart with the colours that Bettina used in one of her samples. I believe it's a kind of the darker brown sample, and then it comes with a plain chart that has symbols instead of colours. I was 100% sure I would get confused with both of them, and so the thing that made most sense to me was to recolor the chart with my own colours. So I used Stitch Fiddle, which is like a website where you can draw your own colourwork charts, and I redrew the chart with my own colours. But I wasn't really paying attention to the legend and the fact that there is a main colour, and then you have like contrast colour 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't know why I didn't think of that. And it wasn't really an issue, like, I think it looks perfectly fine. I just paired the colours together in a way that I thought looked nice when I started it, and then I just kept going with it. The only issue that I ran into with that was that at the very end, and I'll put a close-up of it so you can see a bit better, the colourwork sort of fades into the main colour of the body quite nicely. So you have like these V's that come up into the color work, and then that are meant to be done in the main color, and so then that kind of continues nicely into the body. I was meant to be doing those in the red, I think. So I think I used the red as my main color for the color work portion. Except if I had done that, I would have ended up with like a very harsh line that I didn't think would look very nice. So I did a couple of tests, and I ended up, just for the last like 3 or 4 color changes, I ended up switching the colors around so that I could have the white as the V's, and those could kind of fade nicely into the main color of the body. So I have, I did leave notes on Ravelry on how I did that and which color I switched with what. I don't remember at the moment, and I don't think like anyone is going to really do the same thing, but I did write it down just for future reference. So in case you're curious, it's on my Ravelry page. But overall, I think it looks really, really beautiful. I'm so happy with it. It was a great first color work project, as I was saying earlier. You don't have to catch any floats. I think there's maybe 1 row where you have 4 stitches as your longest float, but everything else is like 1, 2 or 3 stitches. So I didn't catch any floats with this, and the inside looks really cool actually. I'm really proud of how it looks. I think my tension was pretty nice with this. And I did use the recommended needle sizes, so I went up from a 4mm for the stockinette to a 4.5 for the color work. And then I did go down a needle size for the ribbing on the sleeves. I went down to 3.5, but not for the ribbing on the body. I don't know that you can see, but I didn't want the body to kind of cinch in and give a bit of a balloon effect. I just wanted it to go very straight down, especially because I don't think I cropped this, because I think I measured it. And I started knitting the ribbing when it told me to, like, to pattern, and I know that I knit the ribbing to the same length that the pattern told me to, but it is a fairly cropped look on me, and I'm not a very tall person at all. I'm quite short, in fact. So I don't know if it's meant to be that way. I don't know if I'm just, I don't know, can't measure, but I would have cropped it a bit anyways if it hadn't already been that way. And so I didn't want it to then like cinch in. I just wanted it to sit nicely over the top of my high waist trousers, and that worked quite well. But I did go down a needle size for the sleeves just so they can kind of cinch in a little bit. And then in terms of modifications, I think the only thing I did was I shortened the neck a little bit. I did 6 centimeters of ribbing. I can't remember if you're meant to be doing 8 or 9 maybe, but it was meant to come up a bit higher, and I don't really like that look, so I just went for a bit of a lower neckline. But also I think with a colorwork jumper, since it's double thickness all throughout the yoke and it's a wool jumper anyways, like it's quite a warm jumper, it's nice to also have the high neck and just make it like a proper winter jumper, because it's already warm in and of itself. Like, I'm not going to be able to wear this when the weather gets warmer anyways, so it's nice to have that added warmth at the neck as well. I also didn't do anything to kind of, I guess, like mitigate the jog at the back where you have the beginning of round. The pattern doesn't give any indication on how to mitigate that, but I had seen other people's versions and thought that it didn't really bother me, so I didn't really do anything to fix that, and I don't think it looks bad at all. I don't think you can really tell, or like you can if you're looking for it, but a normal person on the street is not going to be able to see it. And also I have long hair. I barely wear my hair up in like 30 degrees heat in July. Definitely don't wear my hair up in the winter, so there's very little chance that anyone will see the back of my jumper anyways, so I'm not particularly concerned about that. But there isn't really instructions written in the pattern on how to do that, if anyone was curious about it. And also in terms of the short rows, I do really like the fit of the jumper. You work some short rows, so after the colorwork portion, but before you split for body and sleeves, just to raise the back of the neck a little bit, and I do think that that fits quite nicely. There's no like puckering or anything weird, like it sits very flat at the front, and then I find it very comfortable against my neck. I don't feel that it's like pulling back or anything, and I don't think that the short row turns are very visible at all. I was checking for them earlier and I couldn't really see them. I think the most evident thing for me was that before I blocked it especially, I did have a little bit of wearing out where my pearl sections were looking tighter than my knits, the main knit rows within the shawl rows, but I think that evened out quite a lot with blocking, so I'm quite happy with the fit of that. Overall, just very happy with how the jumper turned out. Now, I did knit the size extra small. There is an extra small in the pattern as well, and I think it has like a really good amount of positive ease. I can't remember how much in the pattern. I think maybe 5 to 10 centimeters. I don't know if I'm making that up, but I do really like the fit of it on me. Maybe more like 10 to 15. But I do really like the fit of it, and I think it came like very true to size. And I bought the recommended amount of yarn for the pattern. So I bought one 50-gram ball of each of the contrast colors, which I think you only need one ball for all of the sizes, and then varying amounts of the main color. And I had a lot of leftover yarn, which I do think you only need one ball of the contrast colors for, even for the bigger sizes, because I had quite a lot of leftovers, and they're quite evenly distributed throughout the colorwork. So I think that if you had like 25 to 30 grams of a bunch of different colors of yarn that you think you can meet gauge with, this could be a nice like scrappy project to use those up. I think I weighed them. I had the one that I had the least of, I had 20 grams, and I can't remember which one it was, but I had 20 grams left of it, and everything else I had about 25 grams left of the contrast color yarns. So it really didn't use all that much at all. And then I also had 1.5 balls left of the main colors of the white. So I wanted to figure out something to do with that because it is a color scheme that I really like, and also it's a yarn that I've really enjoyed. And Petit Knit does have a matching I guess a matching pattern for a matching pair of mittens. So here they are. And then I also made this, and I actually made this before I made the mittens. I made a little headband. So I guess I will talk about the headband first, since I made it first. This is based on the Lena headband, which is a pattern by Rachele Bardella. She's also Italian, so I did pronounce it just as I would normally. It's not, I say it's based on, and it's not quite that, because the headband is meant to be kind of folded over, so you do it sort of double layer and then kind of fold it together like you would a collar, and then you hide the fold on the inside, like the side that's against your head. I didn't have enough yarn to do that, or at least, yeah, I don't think I would have anyways. I used 24 grams to make this, and it's just like a single layer, and that was kind of the half ball that I had already been using. I just wanted to use that up, and then I had one more ball that was 50 grams that I thought I was going to use entirely for the mittens. The size I was going to make called for 48 grams, and I do have a little bit left. I haven't weighed this, but I think it might be 10 grams or so, so I still don't think it would have been enough to really make this kind of folded. But also this headband is meant to be knit with like 2 strands of lace weight yarn held together, and then you make a double thickness. So I think even like just making it a single layer with a Peer Gynt, which is a DK and it's quite thick for a DK, I think it's 91 meters per 50 grams. It's still a fairly like thick, it's nice and squishy as a headband, so I don't think it will be like, I think it'll still be warm enough even as a single layer, if that makes any sense. But I saw it recommended from Jean Helena's knitting podcast, and she also made it with the leftovers from a scarf, and I thought that it looked really cute, and I have been needing some sort of ear warmth providing accessory, I guess, for when I wait for the bus to go to uni in the morning, so I thought this would kind of be cute. Hats with a fringe are not the easiest thing to pair, but we'll get back to that later actually. So just a pretty simple 1x1. I did half twisted rib for it, but I think it would look good in just 1x1 rib as well, and then I did Italian bind off, and it looks pretty good. And it also matches quite well with the other mittens that I made that I talked about last time. Like, they're a pretty similar color. I've been wearing these a lot, they're very soft. So it's nice that they all match. And then to use up kind of everything else that I had left over, I did go ahead and make the Celeste mittens. First of all, can we take a moment to appreciate how cute they look together? Because I think they're adorable. I was a bit indecisive about what size I would make for these because so the pattern gives you both circumference and length indications for what the mittens will turn out like. And based on my hand measurements, I have very tiny hands. I was meant to knit the size small for the circumference, but that would have been too long. I think size small was 26 centimeters, and I measured it against these mittens, which fit me really well, and they're 23 centimeters. And 26 was just going to be too long. Like, I was going to have way too much overhang over the tip of my fingers, even with the long nails. So what I ended up doing was I cast on the number of stitches for the small. So I knit the circumference of the small, but I knit the color work of the children sizes. So there's two different children sizes that have the same color work chart, and the length of the mitten for the 6 to 10-year-old was 23 centimeters. And so I basically knit the length of the 6 to 10-year-old mitten, but the circumference of the small. And the color work charts are basically the same. They're the same number of stitches, but they're a different number of rows, because if there's a row that maybe you repeat, like, say 3 times in the small, you maybe only do it once for the children sizes, something like that. And I think that worked out pretty well, actually. I will put one on. I think this is still a little bit damp, yeah, because I've been blocking it, but color work takes a while to dry, especially like the floats on the inside take a little while. I think that it looks really cute. Look at that together with the jumper. They make such a cute pair. I'm so happy with it. I think these are going to be nice and warm. My other ones I used drops alpaca for, and they're very fluffy, they're very soft, and they are quite warm, but these are just double thickness DK wool, so I think these are going to be even warmer. And I just think they look really cute. I think the only modification I made with them is I picked up an extra stitch for the thumb. You kind of leave some stitches on hold on a piece of scrap yarn, and then you pick them up again, and say you're meant to have, I think I had like 7 either side, and then I picked up an extra one in the corners. I would have done it anyways, and then I would have maybe decreased it out, but I did it for one of the mittens and then that was too tight, so then I changed it for the second, and then I redid it for the same for the first. So I think these look super cute. As you saw, like, I do still have a little bit of leftovers. I haven't weighed these yet. I will just so I can add them to the Ravelry page, but I'm glad that I got through most of them and I don't have like any full balls left. Next, I guess I will talk about the other big finished object for the week, and then I will get to talking all about socks. So if something, like, if that's not something that interests you, you can just skip over that. I finally finished my sweater number 15. This has been on my needles for 3 months, like I think 3 months and a couple of days. So this was definitely quite a lengthy process. It was such a fun knit. This is, I'm not sure how well you can tell kind of on the screen. I can't really see the cables, but this is an all over colorwork, not all over colorwork, all over cabled jumper, and it's a pattern by My Favorite Things Knitwear. Now, I started getting into it last time. I think last time I had just finished the body, but I hadn't done the body ribbing or the collar, and I hadn't like picked up the sleeves or anything. So I've done the sleeves, and then I did the collar, and I did the ribbing at the bottom of the body as well. As you can see, I still have to weave in my many ends, but this isn't blocked yet because I finished it yesterday, and I wanted to block it first, and then I'll weave in all of my ends in what I'm assuming will be a very long evening. So I started getting into it last time, but this is a pretty modified version of sweater number 15. I don't think in terms of looks it's very different from what it's meant to look like, but I ended up having to make a lot of modifications because I knit this at a very different gauge than what the pattern recommends. So I think sweater number 15 is meant to be knit at a 23 stitch gauge, and I knit this at about a 36 stitch gauge, so quite a substantial difference. So a lot of the changes that I made really had nothing to do with the pattern and everything to do with the fact that I knit it at a different gauge. The only thing I changed to do with the pattern itself was the ribbing, and I will get into that in a second. So this is drop shoulder constructions, so you cast on at the back of the neck and then you work increases to shape the back panel on the shoulders, and you do that with a really beautiful cable detail running through kind of over the shoulder where you do the increases, which I think is quite a characteristic detail of My Favorite Things Knitwear cable jumpers. I think she also has it in her newest cable designs, and it's a feature that I really like. And then you pick up stitches on the two halves of the shoulders to knit the front, join those together, and then join everything in the round, and then do the sleeves and the collar and everything. I wanted a much less oversized finished garment than what the pattern suggested. I think this is meant to have like 25 to 30 centimeters of positive ease, which is not the kind of fit that I wanted for this piece. I wanted something a bit more similar to this, maybe even a bit tighter. And so I sized up, but I didn't size up enough to entirely make up for the difference in gauge. So I would have been meant to knit the smaller size, which I think is an extra small, and I ended up sizing up to a size medium. Now, I'm not entirely sure what sort of calculations went on there, because I redid the maths a few days ago just to double check, and if I knit a size large, I would have gotten like pretty much exactly 5 centimeters of positive ease, which is precisely what I wanted. Instead I went with size medium, which I think would have given me like 3 centimeters of negative ease or something around that. So I'm not entirely sure like what my thought process there was exactly, but I went with size medium, and then I added a cable repeat on the two halves of the front before you do the increases to shape the neckline and join them together. And then I also cast on extra stitches on the underarm. So I think you're meant to cast on, for size medium, you're meant to cast on just like 1 cable width of stitches. And I cast on 3 cables underneath each arm, which gave me quite a bit more room in the body and the arms. And I think if I would have just knit a size large, I would have gotten a very similar fit. But I am really happy with the fit of this, and I do think that it will relax a fair bit with blocking, especially the sleeves are looking very scrunched up, but like there's definitely room for them to relax. So I think really that's the only 2 things that I did to change the fit, and then in terms of like sizing, and then I worked some decreases along the sleeves. The pattern doesn't have sleeve decreases, and while I think that looks really cute, and I love the look of like a wider sleeve or a bell sleeve, I also think that it's very much not practical for kind of what I need from a day-to-day jumper. And I know that a lot of people have worked decreases for this, so I decreased out 3 cables. So I did 2 over here, kind of above the elbow, and then I did 1 just before the ribbing. So I think that worked really well. We'll see how much they kind of grow and relax with blocking, but I am pretty happy with the result. And then in terms of the ribbing, the pattern calls for 1 by 1 half twisted rib, which I think is cute, but I saw someone on one of the Ravelry project pages, I cannot remember the username on the top of my head, so off the top of my head, so I will put that kind of in the text bar. I saw them do sort of a 2 by 2 rib where it comes out very naturally from the cables, and I really like the idea, and so I ended up doing something similar, and I did a bit of a weird thing. So I did knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 3, so that it would come out from the rib pattern of the cables just very neatly, and I do really like that look. I think because it's such a short rib, it's the same height as the cable repeats themselves. It looked really nice that way, and I'm really happy with that choice. And I did the same for the collar as well, and then it's just a folded over collar. I will say, this is my fault, the pattern does remind you to bind off loosely so that your head can actually fit through the collar opening. Guess who did not remember to bind off loosely? So I had to redo that, and unpicking that took longer than I would like to admit, but it is now kind of fixed and it fits really nicely. So I am super happy with how this turned out. For this, I don't have any full skeins left, but I used the Lanivendole Chic blend. I did keep one of the bands. This is a 60% wool, I believe. Where is it? 60% wool, 20% alpaca, 20% mohair blend. And it's I think quite a light fingering weight yarn. It's 225 meters per 50 grams, and it's a 2-ply. This is in the color Sirius Black. I had 2 different dye lots. So I originally bought 5 balls because I thought it was going to be kind of a limited edition, and I saw it and I loved it, and I wasn't sure whether I was going to be able to get more. So I just grabbed the last 5 balls that they had. Or the last 5 skeins, and then they came out with more again, and so I bought another 2, and this is all I have left. This is, I haven't weighed this, I think this might be about 25-30 grams. So in total I used about 6.5 skeins to knit this. So thankfully I did go back and buy more. This is a hand-dyed yarn, and I think it kind of spans from some lighter warm-toned, almost beige grey tones, and then kind of some darker, more blue toned or cool toned darker greys. So it's a fairly variegated yarn. You can definitely tell in certain lightings, but I don't think overall you can really tell like any striping that's too bad or anything. There is in a certain, like you can really see a stripe right here, but I don't know if you can in this one. Like in real life I can't. I don't know if you can on camera or anything. And just by looking at the cables, there's a nice variegation, but it doesn't take away from the texture, or the texture doesn't really take away from the color. I do think that it looks quite nice. I did get a bit of striping on the collar, but I decided that it just gives it a handmade vibe, and I decided I'm just gonna vibe with that. So I'm pretty happy with it. I don't think there were like any significant differences between the 2 dye lots. It's just it was kind of the same as between like each of the individual skeins. So that's my finished sweater number 15. I am super happy with it. I can't wait. I will be blocking it this afternoon and then leaving it to dry over the weekend. And I think I'll try, before I post this, to film a couple of clips of what it turned out after blocking, so I can show it to you as well, because I'm really curious to see how it kind of relaxes. I don't think it's going to grow too much, but I think that just the cables are just going to relax a little bit. Then the next finished object I have is a pair of socks, one of many that I will be talking about today. These are my Petal drop socks. It's a pattern by Florence Miller, or handmade by Florence. And it's a really pretty pair of lace socks. I started working on these the last day of the year, the 31st, because we went away on a 3-day trip to Milan at the beginning of the year, and I didn't want to bring either of the jumpers with me, but I did want a little bit of knitting, just for the car and the hotel in the evenings, and so I thought casting on a pair of socks would be nice. So I went to my local yarn store and I picked up some yarn. I asked for sock yarn and I took what they had. It's quite a small yarn shop, so I didn't really have many options, and they had the Laines Du Nord MINI, which is a 70% wool, 30% acrylic yarn. So it doesn't have any nylon, but it does have acrylic. I'm not particularly interested in knitting with like synthetic fibers, but I know that with socks it's good to have at least some sort of nylon within them so that they don't fall apart too quickly, like that they're more resistant to getting coarse and stuff. But I don't know how they will hold up with the acrylic. I'm quite curious to see. There has been a tiny bit of pilling at the heel for now, but I haven't really worn these a lot, and I haven't put them in shoes yet. I was just wearing them around the house. They're also getting a little bit stained. This one in particular has a bit of a pink heel because I have red slippers, and I did not think that they would stain, but apparently they do. But I kind of wanted to see how they would fare for a little bit just in house slippers before I put them through the absolute sock chewing machine that are my Doc Martens. Especially, I have a new pair to break in, but I will not be doing that with these. So we'll see how I feel about the yarn. It's quite soft. It was nice to work with. It's just a warm toned white, sort of not quite a cream, definitely less warm toned than, where did I put that? Than the Peer Gynt that I showed you earlier. It's a bit more of a true white, but I would still say that it is a little bit warm toned. The pattern was really, really lovely. I think Florence makes like the most beautiful things, and like she has the cutest patterns ever. There's a lot of designs from her that I would like to knit. And I really liked knitting these socks. I thought the pattern was very clearly written, very well explained. The charts were nice and clear, very simple. I think it's a nice lace chart because you do remember it after a while. And so it was good like car knitting as well, so I didn't really have to keep looking at the pattern, and it's you know, it's an easy enough repeat that you can remember it, or at least by looking at where you are and kind of reading your knitting, you can tell what you have to do next. And then it has just a pretty standard slip stitch heel flapping gusset, and I thought that looked really nice. I will say it's meant to have half twisted rib for the cuff, and when I did this I had not yet realized that my knit stitches were already twisted, and so this is accidentally like half twisted rib, but my knit stitches are twisted twice. And so the rib really aggressively leans to one side. Or I guess it's this way, but you will be seeing it that way. So there's that. But I mean, it looks fine. It just leans very aggressively to one side. It's still quite neat. But yeah, don't take on that advice and do it properly. Everything else I think was like really lovely. I knit the smaller size. They fit really nicely, so I'm really happy with how these turned out. And they are like nice and warm. I think I knit this, and then I think I was convinced that I just wanted to knit all of the socks, and I am currently knitting all of the socks. So these were great project, would really recommend. Another project that I finished is another pair of socks that I don't have to show you at the moment because they were a kind of part of the Christmas gift for my mum. So I showed you last time I was working on a 2x2 rib pair of socks based on the Slow Morning DK sock pattern by Wool & Son. Those I decided will be house socks for me. I have yet to knit the second because my 3mm needles have been busy on this. Did I mention that I knit this on 3mm needles? I don't think I did. I knit this on 3mm needles. But that meant that I couldn't cast on the second sock for those. So I will be doing that, and hopefully they'll be a finished object by the next episode. But I decided that they were looking very cute, but a little bit too plain for what I wanted to give my mum for Christmas. I wanted something a little bit more festive. And so with that same red yarn, which was the Drops Fable in the color, I want to say 106. It's a pretty bright red, held double, so I made a DK weight pair of socks. I made a sort of cable design pair of socks where I had 4 stitch cables, so 2 cross cables, kind of all over, and then heel flopping gusset, and then the cables continue over the top of the foot, and you do stockinette for the bottom. So I will put some pictures for you to see them. They were just a freehand. I didn't really follow a pattern, and I think I did 1x1 rib for the cuff, or 2x2 rib. I think, did I do 2x2 rib, or did I? I'm not sure. I will put it on the screen so you can see it. It's been a while since I've seen them because, I mean, I live on my own and then I go back to my parents for the weekend, but she does say that they're really warm and they're really nice, like cozy house socks, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm happy with how those turned out as well. And I think that's it in terms of finished objects. So we can move on to my works in progress. So I have 3 current works in progress, 2 of which are from the same designer and 2 of which are socks. I will start with the jumper because it's the one that I made the least progress on, and so there's very little to say about it. And these first 2 patterns are designs from the Petite Knitter, which has recently changed her like username and branding to Saskie Co, but I wanted to mention both because I think a lot of people still kind of just know her as the Petite Knitter. She makes the most incredible colorwork jumpers and socks, and I want to knit everything, like every single one of her patterns is incredible. But I showed the yarn for this last time. I really want to knit the hytte sweater, probably horribly mispronounced that, Hytte. And that's quite a classic colorwork jumper, I think. It's just got like snowflakes sort of designs, like floral designs. A lot of her jumpers have animals, and there's one with squirrels in the colorwork yoke that I think is so cute. And I would really like to make that at some point, but I wanted to start with something a little bit more classic, I suppose. So I am knitting this in the recommended yarn, which I showed last time. This is the Ístex Plötulopi, which is a 100% wool yarn, and it is 300 meters per 100 grams, and this is unspun yarn. So it comes in this really like big 100-gram cakes. I can't remember the color numbers. This is just a white, and then this is dark amber heather. It's a really pretty like rusty orange that has, it's quite variegated. There's some warmer toned yellow bits and some very red bits in it, and I really like the way that it looks. So I am knitting it in the recommended yarn. I thought, so I've just started. I've just done part of the collar. I will say I thought knitting with unspun yarn was going to be more, like I was a bit worried about it, and then I watched a bunch of videos that gave tips on how to do it and everything. It's been completely fine so far. I did pre-felt the yarn a little bit just by rubbing it through my hands for the cast on, so that I would be a little bit more resistant for casting on, but I haven't had any issues with it breaking or anything, and it's been really good to work with so far. So I'm happy with, you know, how things are going so far, but again, I've really made very little progress. I am about halfway through the collar, I think, maybe less than that, but I'm a bit unsure what I want to do for the collar, to be honest, because in the pictures, the jumper has quite a high collar, but it looks quite stretched out, and I don't know if that was done on purpose, like if it was blocked quite wide, or if it maybe is because she was wearing it folded over and then she folded it back up and it was just stretched out. But I don't really love the look of that on me. So I think what my plan is going to be is I will be wearing it kind of like a turtleneck, so folded over. So I will knit it to pattern, like to the length that the pattern recommends, and then see that, like kind of double check that that looks good with how I want to wear it, and then go on with the colorwork design. I did see a couple of project pages where people did it with a folded collar, which I think is cute, but also again with just like what's going to be a really warm colorwork jumper, I think I would rather have it like proper wintry, since it's already a proper winter jumper anyways, because it will be warm anyways. And I also thought that it was going to be maybe a bit scratchy against my neck, but I tried it on and it doesn't really seem to be scratchy, so I'm pretty happy with that so far. But obviously I am very early on in the process, so hopefully I will have a little bit more progress to show for it next time. So that was a very quick one. And then the other pattern that I currently have on my needles from the Petite Knitter is a pair of socks. These are the Bearberry socks. This is not blocked, but I did finish the first sock and then I cast on the second. I've just done the ribbing. I think this will be my weekend project. This is again a pair of colorwork socks, and it's been a very experimental pair of socks. There's been a lot of trial and error going on with this one. Very briefly, I will mention the yarn. This is Drops Fable, color 100 off-white and 110 rust, if I remember correctly. I did just get one ball of each because that's what the pattern recommended, and then I didn't realize that the petite knitter pretty much knits all of her socks where you have say the main color is white and the contrast color is the rust in one sock. She will switch them for the second one, so that you can just get a pair of socks out of 50 grams of each. And I didn't think that through when I bought the yarn, and then I finished the sock and I weighed them to see if I had enough to make the same sock again, because I don't want them to be two different colors, and I actually do. I have I definitely have enough. Otherwise I would have just gone back to the yarn shop and I would have bought more. But I do have enough, so I think if you're not knitting one of the largest sizes, you should be good. This pattern has a lot of sizes. I don't want to say maybe 10 sizes, maybe more. It has a lot of sizes. It goes from like really small children sizes to really big adult sizes. Now, this has been a lot of trial and error. The thing with colorwork fabric is that it's not stretchy, and it's not meant to be stretchy. And if you make it, even if you knit it so that your floats are very loose and you can still get the sock over your heel, and that's something that you have to be careful with. But even if you knit it so loose that you can kind of stretch it out a little bit, colorwork is not going to look very good when it's stretched out. And when I originally cast it on, I cast on the recommended size for my foot circumference, which is how sock patterns go by normally. You just knit a size based on your foot circumference. As it turns out, I have a very different ankle circumference compared to my foot circumference, and that meant that the sock that I had originally cast on, which was size 6, really did not fit around my ankle. Or I mean, it did, because I knit it so loosely to be able to make sure that it would get over my heel and fit around my ankle, that it did, but it was just really stretched out, and the fabric was just very sparse, and you could really tell that there weren't enough stitches there, so it looked terrible. And so there was a little bit of trial and error to figure out what I wanted to do with it, because also it's not like I could just size up, because then that would be too big around my foot. And so I was a bit confused about what to do. I did do a very brief experiment on 9-inch circular needles as well, because I knit all of my socks magic loop. But I thought with the colorwork it would maybe be more comfortable to use shorter needles. Not the case. That I feel the needles are so short, I feel like I have nothing to grip. I felt like I was playing with a kid-size set. So if you know how to use those, kudos to you, but I think I will stick to my magic loop. But what I ended up settling for was I cast on size 8 for the leg, or the ribbing in the leg, and then I decreased to size 6 for the foot portion. So that might be why the sock looks a bit weird. One, it's not blocked, but two, it is knit in 2 different sizes for the leg and the foot. And I do think it fits really nicely. The leg part is quite, it's not stretched out at all. And I do think that the sizing up to size 7 would probably have been enough. So I will do the second sock the same, but I definitely plan on knitting other colorwork sock patterns from the petite knitter, so I will try to go up to a size 7 for the leg and a size 6 for the foot for those. But overall, I am happy with how this turned out. I do think that it took a bit of trial and error, but I worked it out, and it fits nicely now. I do think that it was also meant to have 3x1 ribbing for the cuff, and I did 2x2. I think after casting it on 3 or 4 times, I just didn't really know what I was doing anymore, and I just went with 2x2 rib. But that was one thing I changed. And then the pattern is also meant to have an afterthought heel, so you just knit it like a tube, and then you add in the heel afterward, which I would have done, but because I wanted to be able to try it on to make sure that the decreases like were going to fit my foot nicely. And the neighbors have started drilling. Sorry about that. Because I wanted to be able to try it on, I ended up doing a shadow wrap heel, so that which is a type of short row heel, just so that I could try it, but also it wouldn't disrupt the pattern at the bottom of the foot like a heel flapping gusset would. And I think I'm happy with my choice. I think it turned out really cute. I'm very happy with my color combination. I definitely want to make more socks in these colors. So that's the current progress update. Hopefully they will be a finished object by next time. That was a bit chaotic in terms of the process, but I think I figured it out. And I think next time I will just try going up to a size 7, and then we'll see how that goes. Also, last thing about the socks, this is definitely a bit more complicated color work than the Celeste, because you do have to catch your floats for this. I think there's sections where you have like 7 or 8 stitches where you're only using like kind of one color, and so you do have to catch your floats. I didn't think that was particularly complicated, but it was my first time doing it. I don't think that this color work is my neatest knitting, but it's okay enough. These will be a nice pair of house socks. And then last but not least, for my wax in progress, I have another pair of socks, or well, it's just part of the first sock for now. I guess this is also kind of part of the acquisitions, because I did buy like all of this sock yarn and knitting night a couple of weeks ago. So I bought the 2 for the Burberry socks, and then the black, I got 2 50-gram balls of the black for this pair of socks. But we'll see if I manage to get a pair of socks out of one ball. I'm not sure if I can, but I'll try. And I think this is color 400 black, and again this is Drops Fable, which is a pretty standard sock yarn. I think it's 75% wool, 25% nylon. And with this I am knitting the Comedy socks by A Bee in the Bonnet, or Lauren Rad. You will not be able to see anything on screen because these are black. And it's been interesting to work on them, especially in the evenings, because obviously with black yarn you cannot see anything. You cannot see your stitches very well, and this is a lace pattern where you do have to go and like drop a loop between stitches a couple of rows below. So figuring out how to do that took a bit. But I do think it's turning out very cute. I do really like the look of it, and I just think realistically black socks are what I'm going to be reaching for the most. I cannot wait to make like lacy and ruffly black socks to wear with my low-rise Doc Martens in the summer. I think it'll be so cute, or at least in the spring. It might be too warm to wear hand-knit socks in the summer, but I will try. So I did the cuff, and I did 2 repeats of the lace chart. And now I'm gonna do the heel flap and gusset heel, and then continue with the foot. So I'm not making this a very high-rise pair of socks, just because I want to be able to wear them mostly with my summer shoes, but also even with my boots I don't wear very high-rise socks, so I think these will be fine with both. I am knitting these on 2.25mm needles as opposed to 2.5, which was the recommended needle size, and I am knitting the smaller size because this is a lace pattern, and it's a lot stretchier than color work is. This fits fine over my ankle and my foot. It's just a little bit more stretched out over my ankle, but I don't really have to like worry about knitting 2 different sizes. But yeah, knitting the smaller size on 2.25mm needles. I've not really changed anything to do with the rib. It's you do half twisted rib, and I did like the pattern recommended, and then I just knitted the chart as it was recommended. I will say the chart, the pattern is very nicely written. The lace design is both charted and written out, kind of with written instructions row by row. But I will say the pattern is quite a lot more expensive than other sock patterns I've seen. So I guess keep that in mind. I thought it looked really cute, and I was happy to buy it anyways. And actually I think she also has like a sock yearly sock club. It's not monthly. I think there's like 4 or 5 designs throughout the year, but I am planning on, once it comes out for 2025, I am planning on subscribing to that because I do think her sock patterns are very cute. But I did want to mention that because it was just something I noticed. So that's it for my works in progress. I do have a couple of yarn acquisitions to show for what I think are going to be majority of the rest of my winter plans. So I picked up yarn for 3 different projects, and I have more, but I will start with the most exciting thing. I had a really good time working with the Peer Gynt, that I thought I would buy some more to make another jumper, and there's this colour of the Peer Gynt that's called Red Wine that I have just been eyeing up and that I think it looks so beautiful. And I was recently gifted a silk skirt in the same colour, like this exact same burgundy, just as a Christmas gift, and I thought it would be really cute to knit a jumper in the same colour. This was also the colour of my graduation dress, and I don't tend to wear a lot of colour. I wear a lot of black and a lot of neutrals, but I found out this year that this kind of deep burgundy tone looks really nice, and I think it works fine with my hair too. And so I bought a sweater quantity. I think I got 13 balls, and my plan for this is to knit sweater number 29 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, which is essentially sweater number 15 but saddle shoulder and at a larger gauge. So did I just cast off an all over cable jumper only to cast on another that will look very similar? Yes, but also I am going for a very different look and a very different fit. I plan on knitting the smaller size, which is meant to give you, I think, 99 centimeters of circumference, and that will still give me like over 10 centimeters, over 15 centimeters positive ease. So it'll be a bit wider, and also like I kind of double check the measurements to the only slightly more oversized cropped jumper that I have, or it's not that cropped, but it's a little bit cropped, and they're exactly the same, and I wear that all the time, and I really love the way that it looks, and I think in terms of yarn thickness it's a pretty similar type of yarn, and so it's not a hand knit, it's just a store-bought jumper, but I think I am going for kind of a very different look from what I got for the sweater number 15, so I think it'll be nice to sort of have both, and I really want to be able to pair this with that skirt, but also I think it'll look just really nice with all of my black clothing anyways. So sweater quantity of Peer Gynt. I'm very excited to cast this on. Then I picked up 2 balls of the Sandnes Garn Fritted Garn, I think that's how you say it. This is just the color black. This is like a chunky weight yarn, I guess. Does it say how many meters it is? 70 meters per 50 grams. I only bought 2 balls. My plan for these is to knit a beret. My Favorite Things Knitwear has a few different beret patterns, and I think beret number 3 is knit using this yarn, and I saw a few people knit them and I think they look really cute, and I'm really curious to try and felt something. So the way that this pattern works, I haven't bought it yet, but just from what I've heard people say, is you knit like a gigantic beret and then you felt that through the wash and then it shrinks, and I just feel like it would be a bit of a different and really exciting thing to try and do. Hopefully I don't shrink it too much to the point where it's unwearable, but using the recommended yarn for the pattern kind of gives me a little bit more hope that it will work. And also berets are really the only kind of hat that I think looks fine with my fringe, and I lost my favorite black beret on a train to Manchester in 2019, so 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Well, 5, it was like December 2019. So I thought it would be nice to just make another. And then while I was placing the order, I also saw that they had some sock yarn on the website, and so it was one that I haven't tried before. It's the Novita Viola, or Viola, like I would say in Italian. And it is just a pretty standard 200 meters per 50 grams, 80% wool, 20% polyamide sock yarn. And I got the cream color. This is color It does have numbers, but I'm not sure. Oh, color 010. Okay, the rest are like dial-outs and stuff. Color 010. So this will make a nice pair of cable or lace socks. I'm not really sure what I want to do with it just yet. And I just got 100 grams, so I can kind of make whatever. So that's about it. I haven't looked at how long I've been recording for, but I'm afraid this might be a bit of a long one. If you're still around kind of here at the end, thank you for sticking around. I hope that it was kind of somewhat interesting for you. I would love to know if you are working on some sort of knitting project, what you're currently working on. Feel free to share about them in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you soon with a new video. Happy knitting and a happy rest of your day. Bye!